Good evening, spooks, and welcome to my October wrap-up. The season of the spooks, if you will, and we definitely got spooky this month. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm holding in my hands right here a clipboard, because we take our jobs very seriously here. It just says stats. No sneak peeks. I will tell you in good time. I'm going to tell you the stats of the books that I read in October. I'm going to tell you how I used my boost cards from the October TBR game. And then I'm going to tell you all my inner deep thoughts about the books that I read. Okay, shall we get started? Shall we consult the clipboard for the stats? So in the month of October, I read 8 books, which is perfectly average for me. That is exactly the number of books that I kind of hope/expect to read in a month. So a successful month in my eyes. 7 of those books were physical copies and 1 was an audiobook. So that means in the month of October, I read 2,097 pages and I listened to 7 hours and 23 minutes of audio. I was away for a week of the month, so I was doing a lot of physical reading but didn't listen to many audiobooks. I also just had a very busy month, so there wasn't much time for listening to audiobooks, but it was a good reading month nonetheless. My average rating for the month was 3.63. I would love to break the 4 barrier, but I just can't seem to quite get there, but 3.63 was good. One of those was a 5-star, and one was a 2-star. You'll find out. The most common genre that I read this month will not surprise you. It's not horror, so maybe that surprises you a little bit, but it was a witchy fantasy. I put in the fact it was witchy fantasy because whilst some of them were cozy fantasy, some of them were just fantasy, all of them had witches. So a witchy fantasy it is. I'm going to let Past Jess tell you about the boost cards which I used in the month of October, and then I'm going to tell you all my thoughts about the books, and then I'll give you a quick summary at the end. Okay. For my first boost card, I got Make a Cocktail, and I made a white wine spritzer, which I feel can count. And I watched Gavin and Lexi's live show, and it was amazing. Then I got the boost card Bake, or do some baking, and you will have seen if you watched my autumn video that I baked, or can you call this baking? Who knows? I made these cinnamon buns and they were so good. I love cinnamon buns. I know it's kind of cheating because it came out of a tube, but whatever, it tasted great. My last card was to go to the library, and I did, but I forgot to film. You'll have to trust me. 2 days ago, on the 7th of October, I finished reading Cackle by Rachel Harrison. And when I tell you, I picked this book up because the cover was cute, it felt like it would be cozy, witchy, autumnal vibes. I did not expect to go on a journey. I thought this was just going to be light-hearted, discovering you're a witch and, I don't know, falling in love or finding yourself, moving to a small town and finding some family there. I did not expect to be tearing up, to be healing. What did you do to me, Harrison? I read this book in 3 days, 2 days. I zoomed through. I was reading 100 pages at a time, and I rated this 4.5 stars. This was so beautiful, but beautiful in its simplicity. This is about Annie, and Annie is broken up with, and she has to uproot her life. She has to move out of the apartment she has with her boyfriend. Her boyfriend, they've been together for, I think she says 10 years. It is a long time. She has hopes and dreams tied to this man. He breaks up with her and she moves out. She moves to a small town and starts a new job and an entire new life and discovers herself and discovers her powers. So whilst on the face of it, you would think this is a woman finding out she's a witch. But it's so much more than that. It is a woman untethering herself, her self-worth and her entire life from a mediocre man and finding her power. And powers, but also her power. Okay, it is so touching. Let me read you a few quotes so you can see the gist of this book and see why I love it so much. So as the quotes progress, you'll see how her self-worth progresses, I hope. It's so easy to adjust when you're newly in love, when you're all gooey, soft and malleable as an infant's skull. You make so much space in your life and in your heart, and when the person you love leaves, you're all stretched out. There's so much room inside me that I don't know what to do with. Space I don't know how to fill. I've been waiting for it to shrivel up, for me to take my former shape, to be who I was before I met him, but it's not happening. It's been so long, I don't even remember who I was before him. How many times have you felt like that? You go through maybe a bad breakup, or you end a bad relationship, and you're like, who even am I? What did I enjoy before I was told not to enjoy these things? hitting a little too close to home there, Rachel. So Annie meets a new friend and her name is Sophie, and this is who we're talking about in this quote. So Sophie says to her, "You'll discover for yourself soon enough the things that devastate us most in the moment are always the things we look back on with such gratitude." I wish I could believe her. I want to, but I can't let go of my cynicism. I have to keep it close, tucked under my seat like an inflatable life vest. I'm too afraid of what will happen if I allow myself to become hopeful. What terrible disappointments will attack while I'm stupid, happy, and unprepared. That's such a real emotion of being frightened to be happy because you don't want to lose it. So now we're heading towards the end of the book and things are starting to look up. So my next two quotes are hopeful. And this is what I mean when I say beautiful in its simplicity. Just hear me out. Annie has just cooked herself a really special meal all for herself. So she had this notion of, now I'm alone, what is the point in cooking a big meal for myself because I'm the only person that sees it, I'm the only person that enjoys it. So she's been kind of stuck in a rut of eating takeaways or like freezer dinners or microwave meals, and she finally cooks herself an entire meal from scratch, a 3-course dinner I think she has, and a glass of wine or whatever, and she says, "I fed me, I should cherish myself. I clamp my eyes shut, my fingers curling tight, my hands embracing like long-lost friends. I focus. I breathe in. That golden scent of butter, of citrus and rosemary. The warmth of it all nuzzles against me. There's a contentment I've never known brewing within me. I can feel it, its gentle swell. Surrender," a voice says. It's so wholesome and sweet. Like, she's just cooked herself a roast chicken, I think it is, and she's just like, I did this. I fed myself, I nourished myself, I deserve this. You're getting me to tear up here, Rachel. You're getting me to tear up. Chill out. The last quote is one of my absolute favourites. It really just sums up the whole book's vibe and the point of it. So bear with me because it's quite long, but it's worth it. Okay, it's worth it. The next weekend, Sophie teaches me how to make rose petal salve, how to make ginger oil. We roast and grind cinnamon. We dehydrate mint and make tea. We slice open vanilla beans with sharp knives and scrape out their insides. We bake cakes we adorn with fruit. I teach myself how to make lamb stew. I teach myself how to bake salmon so it's well done, the way I like it. There's no one else to consider, and for the first time that feels like a gift. I dance around the kitchen to music of my choosing. One morning, I wake up and there are flowers at the foot of my bed. I don't know how I know, but I know. I picked them in my dreams. Annie, please. You deserve this happiness, Annie. You deserve this happiness. You deserve this joy. You deserve this peace. You deserve to cook a meal for yourself and dance in your kitchen. Okay? I could be talking to past Jess here, but we'll never know, okay? We'll never know. It's just so wholesome. It's so well written. I would love to pick up something else by Rachel Harrison, and it was so unexpected. I just thought I was here for a witchy good time. I did not expect to feel feelings, but I did, and it is a 4-star. Where are your clothes? 1 second, please. On the 8th of October, I finished reading Rewitched by Lucy Jane Wood. And this is, you see the cat, such a beautiful edition. I rated this 3.5 stars. It was very good. I think it maybe paled in comparison after finishing Cackle just before, because this actually was the cozy witchy book that I was looking for, which is great. That's what I wanted. Cackle just blew me out of the water. What I really loved about this one was that the focus was not on the romance. It does say in the little blurb, with found family, a dash of romance, and an uplifting message about self-love, Rewitched is a cozy autumnal fantasy that will leave readers spellbound. And the romance part of it, I think, was very minor, or I wasn't that invested in it. It was nice. It was fine. The guy was great, and I'm glad they found each other. But what I really, really loved about it was the mother-daughter relationship in this is so wholesome. It's so genuine. It's very well written. I'm assuming either Lucy has an amazing relationship with her mother, or she's just a really incredible writer, because that felt extremely realistic. And also, there is a very good friendship between the main character and her friend, whose name is Ariadne, by the way. Incredible, perfect, no notes. And their friendship feels very much like in Frozen, when actually the love of your sister saves you and not a man. And this feels the same. It's got the same sort of vibe, okay, where it's like, your friends will save you. Your friends will always be there. This lifelong girly friend, that's the love of your life. That's your soulmate, okay? It was a really good, cozy, witchy time. There are some stakes in there, so it keeps you on your toes. I listened to it on audiobook because I did not want to open this much at all, so I've got no quotes to share, but I will say it was a very good time and really good to read in autumn, especially October, because it's actually set in the month of October. I won't spoil it, but there is a trial of sorts, and it takes the length of October, so the whole book is set in October. So a great month to read it. But really enjoyed this one, and will definitely pick up something by the author again, and will be displaying this proudly on my shelf because it's stunning. Okay. I don't even know what to tell you about my hair, okay? It's just what we're dealing with right now. This is it. It's what you get. On the 10th of October, I finished reading The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore by Laurie Gilmore, and I rated this 2 stars. This is the second book in the Dream Harbor series if you haven't heard of it before. The first one's called The Pumpkin Spice Cafe, and I think I rated it 3 stars. It was okay. I thought that the male character was kind of problematic and needed to go to therapy, but in the end, the woman saved him. Love when that happens. And there is also a third book which is called The Christmas Tree Farm, and I will for sure be reading that in December because I love a festive romance and kind of can detach myself a bit more from the story just because it's festive. So I care less maybe if things are problematic or if the relationship's boring just because it's Christmas. But this one I can't forgive. I won't give loads of opinions on it because I read it as part of my autumn reading vlog, so you can go and watch that video where I film clips as I'm reading it with thoughts. But right, you look at this cover, you look at this title, and you tell me this is not an autumn book. This is an autumn book, right? Everything about this screams autumn. No. This is set in summer. The whole book is set in summer. It was so frustrating. Luckily, I knew that going into it, so I knew not to expect lovely, cozy, autumnal vibes. The whole thing was summer. It was only maybe the last 10% of the book that got a bit autumnal because it was set at Thanksgiving. But yeah, so that part was very disappointing. I don't think you should get away with making a beautiful cover like this, naming a bookstore, putting the title on your book like this, and not making it an autumn book. Straight to jail. Straight to jail. But aside from that part, the characters in this were so frustrating. I don't think that anyone was problematic in the same way that I kind of found the guy in Pumpkin Spice Cafe to be, but they were so boring. They were the most two-dimensional characters I think I've ever had the displeasure of reading. Towards the end, the male main character kind of got a bit more essence to him. He had some family dramas going on, which kind of made his personality a bit more interesting. But the female main character, her whole personality was that she was scared of turning 30. That was it, really. And the point of the book was that she was scared of turning 30, and so she wanted to have a wild summer and do crazy things with this hot guy in the village. And the crazy things were just so unbelievably tame. They went to a fair. They went on one of those big wheel things. What are they called? You know what I mean, right? The big wheel things. They ate ice cream. They made milkshakes. They had sex on the beach. I guess that was like mild wild. But for the most part, it just felt like a couple of teenagers dating, and we were led to believe this was like a life-changing wild experience. It was just really disappointing. And I don't mind if the relationship isn't that interesting, if the vibes are on point, but the vibes were not on point. So I am concerned I'm going to read The Christmas Tree Farm, and it's going to be set in like November or something. But I have high hopes because I don't expect much. I just want there to be Christmas trees and snow and good food and hot drinks and then someone kisses at the end. You know, I don't ask for much. But yeah, unfortunately this one was just not it. It's so stunning, it feels like a crime. A crime has been committed. Look at this cover and then tell me it's not set in autumn. I will still be picking up the third one. I think I just like to hurt myself. And if there's a fourth one, you can bet your butt I'm going to read that too. Bye! On the 13th of October, I finished reading The Rooftop by Fernanda Trias, and I rated this 5 stars. 5 stars. Okay, now I didn't really know what I was going into. I can't remember when I bought this or why I bought this, but now I know why. So I didn't really know whether it was a horror or not. I kind of had it in my mind that it had horror aspects, but it was mainly literary fiction, and that was accurate. I checked Goodreads when I marked it as read, and it does say literary fiction, it does say horror, and it kind of is. It's a very claustrophobic, speculative horror. It does say on the back, The Rooftop is a claustrophobic foray into freedom, paranoia, and motherhood, and a vision of the slender threads that bind us to civilization. This is extremely well crafted, okay? It's a very short novella, but I was equal parts horrified, confused, and uncomfortable. I don't think it's ever fully explained, but Clara is the main character in this. She has a baby. We don't know who the father is. You can maybe take a guess. It's either who she calls the medicine man. Clara's father is very poorly, or we're led to believe he's very poorly, and she keeps him in the flat with her at all times. He's not allowed to leave the house, even if he wants to. So at some point in the past, a medicine man has visited him. No one else is allowed in the house now, so he hasn't been since. So the father of Clara's baby could be the medicine man, but more disturbingly, it could be her own father. There are a lot of scenes where it's questionable how Clara feels about her father. It's pretty gross, if I'm honest. So her father has lost his partner, and I don't believe that is Clara's mum. I think it is a stepmother. And Clara does sometimes dress up as her and use her father's delirious nature to her advantage. Do you get where I'm going with this? It's pretty uncomfortable, but it is such a good portrayal of how easy it is to descend into some semblance of madness. Especially through like the paranoia in this is just painfully obvious, and it escalates until there is no reasoning with Clara whatsoever. For a very short book, I think it was 130 pages. Wow. I will definitely be picking up something else by the same author. I think there's one of the books she's written that has been translated, as far as I'm aware, so I will be picking that one up. But this one was translated by Annie McDermott, and it was very well done. This was incredible, and it was a 5 stars. Next up, on the 14th of October, I finished listening to The Ex Hex by Erin Sterling, and I did listen to the full audiobook. I don't own a physical copy, and I read this because of a book club, so it was a book club pick, along with another book that I'm hoping to read this month, but no spoilers, and I rated this 3 stars. This was kind of exactly what I expected from a witchy romance. It was great, and I can't really fault it for that. There was just, for me, something missing. I don't really know what it was, but at no point was I like, this is amazing. But then at no point was I like, this sucks. So 3 stars it is. I don't really have much to say about it. It was just kind of okay. I think there are other witchy romances that I've read that I have preferred. And I appreciate that whilst it is a witchy romance, the focus is quite a lot on the romance. But I think for me, this was a little too focused on the romance. I know that there is a curse they're trying to break, and that part was very interesting, but it felt very easy and like it wasn't the most well researched or well thought out issue. So the attention is all on the couple and the rekindling of this romance and the sex scenes, etc., but not a lot was witchy about it, apart from the curse. So I think that was what it was lacking, whereas I've read similar things, even like Rewitched, which I read this month, and that was still a 3 star, but better because it had a good balance between romance and witchy stuff. And I've also read The Honey Witch and A Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon. Both of these were 4-star reads, and they just had a really good balance of romance where I am invested and I want the relationship to flourish, but also I'm very interested in the magic system. This one, unfortunately, was just good. I would probably read the sequel, to be honest. It was just a nice, relaxing time. It was a little bit like a palate cleanser. And I do tend to pick up a witchy romance if I want a palate cleanser, but I still want it to have some substance. Not that this didn't. I don't want to slate it because it wasn't a bad book, and I will be picking up the sequel, so it can't have been that bad, and 3 stars is a respectable rating. It just perhaps wasn't what I was hoping for. Okay, thank you. On the 25th of October, I read Carrie by Stephen King. Can you believe how small this book is? I don't know why I thought it would be a tome? I thought it would be a tome like his usual books, but this is a very short book. I've also watched the film, so I kind of knew roughly what was going to happen, but that did not mean it disappointed. This was a 4-star read, and I loved it. I read it whilst I was in Amsterdam, and I have a whole vlog coming out on it, so I am not going to give any opinions whatsoever because that vlog hasn't come out yet, so no thoughts other than, yeah, 4 stars. Loved it. Then, on the 27th of October, I finished Stoneblind by Natalie Haynes. This copy is gorgeous. I half read this, half listened to this on audiobook, and it took me 10 days to finish it, maybe 9 days. I still rated it 4 stars, but it felt a little bit like a slog to get through, and I don't know if it's just because I knew the story, and I know that sometimes if I read a retelling of a Greek myth, especially where I already know the story quite well, it sometimes feels quite hard to get through because the writing has to be incredible to win me over. I do enjoy Natalie Haynes' writing. She adds such good personality to each character, And the humor in this is so dry, it's so sarcastic, especially Athena and Medusa's head. Medusa's head's personality was much funnier than Medusa's personality. Just very dry, very sarcastic, and it was very entertaining. I enjoyed reading it, even though I knew the story and I've read lots of other Medusa retellings. Still enjoyed this one. I have on my shelf Divine Might by Natalie Haynes, so I will be reading that one next, and I'm looking forward to owning all of her hardback books because she doesn't sleep on those covers. So I'm not going to bore you with the details of Medusa's story because I feel like you will probably know it, but if you do, if you don't, I recommend you pick up Natalie Haynes' book. On the 27th of October, I finished reading The Women Could Fly by Megan Gidding, and I rated this 3 stars. And this was a disappointing 3 stars. I thought when I first started this, I think maybe the first 20%, I thought, oh, this is going to be a 5-star read. This has everything I want in a book. It's queer, it's witchy, it has family drama, but it just did not quite hit the mark. It was such a case of fizzling out towards the end. It kind of lost me in the middle part. It started to get quite boring. I couldn't understand what the point of the story was. And then the ending was just a bit dull. It was so disappointing. It really was, because the whole idea of it was so interesting. And I know that word is like kind of taboo, but it was, because in this world, witches exist, but so that the world stays safe from these terrifying witches. Plot twist, they're not terrifying at all, they're just women. So the world stays safe. The women, by the age of 30, have to marry, and I believe they have to marry a man. So it's not a very queer-friendly world, and it's not a very woman-friendly world. You basically have to have a man in your life so that they can keep an eye on you to make sure you're not getting up to any witchy naughtiness. And I liked that social commentary because it felt very much like, if you go beyond 30 and you're not married, you're put on the shelf. It had that kind of commentary behind it, and I like reading about that because it's quite eye-opening. Being a woman over the age of 30 and unmarried, I could kind of relate to that because there are a lot of society expectations on you, and so that kind of hit home. It was very, I'm going to use it, it was very interesting to read that and to see that portrayed in a fictional kind of way. So as you can see, the prospects were prospecting, but it fell short. The mum in this, I know that she was written to be hated, and I did hate her. She was an awful parent. In fact, both of the main characters' parents sucked so bad. It started very, very strong and then completely fizzled out, and I'm hurt. I'm physically hurt about it because I thought this was going to be a new favourite. Let me read you a couple of quotes because there were some very quotable things in here. There were some great lines. The writing, can I just take a moment to say, is great. I have an incoming call. So, there have been times when I've been laughing, my head bent over a martini, my favourite song playing in the bar, people dancing and flirting around me, and a small voice inside of me would whisper, I would like to bite into this glass, chew myself dead. Is that not perfection? Stunning. Also thought this line was very beautiful and very true. I think how people understand and interact with magic has been diminished over the centuries. Maybe before it truly was something people practiced and performed. Then people, as they do with everything strange and beautiful and inexplicable, found a way to destroy it. Is that not just so accurate? Alongside the commentary of being over the age of 30, being a woman, there is also a lot of commentary on how it feels to be a black woman in society, and especially in a white-dominated society. So I've never wanted to be white, not once, but I wanted the ease of feeling protected and beautiful enough to try and make a joke, to not have my hands on the dashboard, to not text someone pulled over by the cops, please call in 15 minutes if you don't hear from me by then. So we're seeing so many different parts of society and how they keep women, especially queer, especially black women, isolated and terrified to keep the world safe. So as I said earlier, the mum is not a good person. The last quote I'll read is just a realization that Josephine has, and it's a very short sentence, but it's very powerful. My head kept turning over my fight with my mum. I was embarrassed I could see her for who she was and still let her crush me like this. Honestly, I was listening to the audiobook at that point, but I was like, hang on, pause, get me the book, get me the tab that bad boy. So as you can tell, it had some very impactful quotes and it was beautifully written. Unfortunately, the plot itself was the only thing that really let it down. About 30% of the way through, I was like, this is going to be a 5-star. This is going to be a new favourite. I'm going to recommend this to everybody I know. But unfortunately, not. Hi, welcome back! Now you've heard from past Jess, welcome to present Jess. and I'm going to summarise the books that I read and the TBR prompts that I was given in order to read those books. Here's a stack, isn't she pretty? I'm going to go in order of smallest to largest because that's the pile in which they are in. So I read Carrie, the Ex Hex, and also The Women Could Fly as book club picks. So not my own book club, other book clubs, and so they weren't part of my TBR game. I read The Rooftop for the TBR prompt, an author's ethnicity that differs from my own. I read Rewitched for the prompt, a book set in my current season, which was very apt to get that in October. And last up, I read Stoneblind, and the prompt was mythology. So it was a great month of prompts and a great month of reading. All the other books I read just for fun because I wanted to. Before my mic dies, let me say, as always, if you have any recommendations of witchy fantasies, of horrors, of autumnal books that are actually set in autumn, please drop them in the comments down below. But otherwise, I'll catch you in a video very, very soon. Bye!